right now, it's a huge fire and everybody's getting burned, right? And what we need to do is to maybe to give each other some distance. Nobody throw any logs into the fire so that this thing can die down a little bit. And then once the dust settles, right, we'll figure out if it's really that big of a deal.
A topic we wanted to tackle today was about dealing with conflict. And when you and I were first sitting down and putting together different topics that we could discuss, that was one that came up. And the reason that it came up was because I had this client that he was getting all sorts of flack from some of his guys in the field. It's a blue collar trade. And they were angry about something. I can't even remember what the something was, but they were posturing and they were texting and they were really tough on text message. And all he responded was, sounds like we need to talk. And then by the time they actually got face to face, the person that was talking real big on text message almost broke down in tears, because it's a different thing when you actually have to talk to somebody. You actually have to look them in the eyeball and things like that. And so it was a young guy, very young. And I think that, I don't know if it's part of social media and people can just be tough and they can be invisible and anonymous. And then, it's a totally different thing. So what was that Mike Tyson phrase, right? Like, everybody's got a plan until somebody punches you in the mouth. It's all fun and games until you actually have to have the hard conversation in front of actual people. So I was curious to hear your perspective on that. How do you see that in school and in life with your boys and all that stuff?
Yeah. I was actually thinking about your this little scenario that you told me about, tough talking over, social media or texting or whatever. I was actually, through my college, high school years, actually more college. That's when like Xbox Live,
Yeah.
get like online gaming really started to take off. And boy, you want to talk about talking a lot of trash online without reaping any repercussions about what you say to people. That's the way to do it right there. That was the way to do it back in the days. That was the original.
Yeah.
But
That's so crazy though. So, I mean, I guess like side note on that. So it's all on the same topic. I was meeting with a friend. It was Friday last week. We were having coffee and we were trying to talk about something similar. And he had a friend and that he played football together. And he said he woke up one morning and ESPN was on and his friend's name was on ESPN. And he's like, am I in a dream? Like, what's going on? So what happened was, I guess it was an online gaming that he was live and somebody recorded him. I guess it was his previous girlfriend when he was in seventh grade. And then the OSU Beavers dropped him because of some comment that he made as a young, dumb, 12 or 13-year-old kid. Same thing, it's kind of like he probably never would have said that, in real life. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
maybe he would have, he might have been a tough football player and talked some smack, but you know what I mean? I don't know what was said, obviously, but it was obviously like a big enough deal that he lost the scholarship, got kicked off the team. Like, it was a big deal at the time, right? Anyway, sorry, go
Yeah.
up that, but it was just kind of like, yeah, you're talking about like, gaming and being
Yeah.
tough online, and
I think it's a culture, a gaming culture now that's pretty pretty rampant. I don't play as much video games as I used to. But at that time I was playing quite a bit, right? My college years. Enough so to where I actually wrote my final thesis on it about like the anonymity of like gaming online and that type of culture and what it looks like, right? And my teacher thought at the time, my professor thought it was brilliant because like nobody was doing it right now, and I was like, wow, all right, well, I'll try it out, and
yeah,
sure enough, it was it all came to fruition. There's something about that anonymity um, that the online gives you, or like in your case, you know, maybe it's not so much anonymity, but the lack of face to face, like you're saying, the eye contact, like hearing a person's voice, uh, especially the eye contact. I mean, we've all gotten in trouble before, and it's hard to look my dad in the face,
Right.
and
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
all me, dad. Oh man. So when you ask me about how this looks like in school, and what's great about this year is that we have really clamped down on cell phones. So no cell phones in the class, no cell phones during lunch. We did it last year, but we allowed cell phones during lunchtime. And guess when the uptick of my office visits, uh, guess what time it really started, getting
Probably
busy?
then.
Right after lunch. So not only was I, because I also go outside, and I do lunch duty outside, which is my time to really get to hang out with kids, right? Because I don't want kids to be out of class for a long time. I don't want them
Yeah.
missing
Yeah.
out on things, so I take advantage of the times when they have free times. And so when kids come up to me during their free time, great. Like it feels like I'm creating a presence where they can do that. But I'm busy, right? And I haven't eaten lunch. So not only does my office get busy right after lunch, I'm hungry. So uh,
You don't get rated as best?
I don't know. I mean, yeah, I certainly there's certainly times like I don't give them maybe my best, but um what that's helped me to do is to recognize that it obviously to recognize the pattern, but also, okay, how can I make this more efficient? And so, what I would do is tell kids, because it's about cell phone use, somebody taking pictures of me like outside, or some social media conflict exchange that I listen to for about maybe 5 minutes, and then I kind of I assess. Okay, sounds like you two need to just come into my office and we resolve this. I like. Let me think about it. What's there to think about? You said that this is such a huge deal. Um, you you come in my office. You know how I do it. You talk, they listen, and then when you're done, you listen, they talk, and then afterwards we figure it out. Um, and when students actually do say, "Yeah, that sounds like a good idea," it's amazing how, like, things get aired out, things are talked over in a much more civil manner, and, and we have a plan moving forward, whether it's to, "You guys just need to take a break from each other," um, so that, this huge fire that's between you dies down a little bit. You know what I mean? And I usually don't have that's actually how I describe the situation right now. You know, it's a huge fire and everybody's getting burned, right? And what we need to do is to maybe to give each other some distance. Nobody throw any logs into the fire so that this thing can die down a little bit. And then once the dust settles, right, we'll figure out if it's really that big of a deal. Now, obviously, want to make sure that there's immediate harm, and pulling apart those things before moving on. But for the most part, it's a lot of that. It's a lot of lost in translation type of conflict that gets resolved fairly quickly, and again, more civil when people are face to face.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. How how do you help, or do you see it where you're always the mediator, or do you see students like engaging them in that for themselves? later on. Let's say there's student you worked with in their sixth grade. By the time they're eighth grade, hopefully they're not in your office every time. Hopefully they've
Totally.
taken it offline, right?
Yeah. I think kids eventually internalize some of those things. They know what they're gonna get when they come to me, right? So, you they hopefully they internalize it to where they go, okay, well, I know what I'm gonna do when I get into Mr. Sebastian's office, so I might as well just kind of try to figure this out. Or some of the plans and skill sets that he's kind of taught me and talked about, I'm gonna apply that you know, before this gets out of hand, right? That's kind of what you want, and I've actually heard those things happen, and kids report it to me, right? It's to where the conversation it maybe is at the basketball courts where they tell me there's a problem. I go, so what you gonna do about it? Well, I think I'm just probably gonna give them some space and then we'll talk about it later. I was like, ah, sounds familiar, doesn't it? They're like, yeah. Okay, well, have a good time. Focus on some good stuff. You know what I
Nice.
mean?
Yeah.
But what people, I've actually had some like some other kids and even some teachers around when I've said that, and they go, "Oh wow, that was really easy." What they don't realize sometimes is that there was maybe 5 or 6 conversations prior to that
Right.
we've practiced before. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, I was thinking too, because yesterday I had a phone call from a different client down in San Diego, and he's a young guy, and he bought a company, and so he's kind of new to being a business owner. I think new to being a boss, and he's got guys that work for him that are a lot older, and so there's a different dynamic. And so he told me that he had one guy who's new on the team, been there about a month. He had to come down on him about not wearing PPE on a job site, and then he had to, and he was an estimator, and his numbers were wrong, and just how he was coming across. This guy's like, "You can't talk to me like I'm a kid," like, you know, and so he called, so anyway, this guy calls me. He's just frustrated. He's like, "Well, what am I supposed to do? I'm his boss. Like, I'm supposed to like, kind of bring the hammer down." And on the phone, right? We were face to face. I was on the phone with him. I said, "It's amazing what correction you can give to somebody when you just have a smile on your face. It's amazing how far that goes." And he stopped. He's like, "I've been meaning to tell you that because you've told me some harsh things, but I'm always like, dang, Jason, that hurts, but thank you." You know? But I said, "Yeah, it's kind of the learning the tact of it, right?" And if you're always in chat rooms, you're always on social media, you have no right that actual like human engagement is hard, especially if it's not practiced. And if you have to say hard things, I think a lot of people don't even know how. I mean, right? They either go super harsh on this side and they just burn people, which isn't healthy and good, or the other side where they just avoid it altogether. And then I think that brings its own issues, obviously, right? Because then it can turn into like gossip and backbiting, and you're talking behind people's back because you've got this pent up frustration, anger, whatever, and you're not just getting it out. And so I guess two things. One is that people aren't as scary as you think they are in confrontation. They're not, right? I mean, like if I've had lots of people like heated emails, heated texts, and then as soon as I get on the phone with them, I'm like, "Hey man, it sounds like we got to talk through this." Like it immediately like softens. I don't know if you've experienced that. And I've had a couple instances where people are just like, they're so emotional, right? They're just so over the top that it's like, man, you are not even thinking with your logical brain right now. So, we're going to kind of the distance thing. Like, I'm going to hang up. You can't talk to us like that. You can't talk to me like that. You can't talk to my people like that. Call me back in a few hours once you cool off, right? But for the most part, it's that people really soften because it's it's a real conflict, right? It's an actual conflict that you actually have to resolve. So I think my question that I was kind of like going around and around about yesterday was, I mean, yes, you need to understand the people skill and the people dynamic of how you come across. If you're too harsh, you got to understand that. You got to understand that people are people and they do have feelings, and so you have to soften it smile, say hard things. But what I was telling this guy on the phone, I'm doing trying really hard to make sure I don't say his name. What I was telling him on the phone is that you have to build, like, the trust is kind of the common thread, right? If people don't know you, they don't trust you, you just come across harsh, it's not going to go well. But if you can soften that and let people know that you actually care about them and then deliver some hard news, then people will receive it. And then that will drive change. It just goes back to John Maxwell's 5 levels of leadership, really, right? When you're a positional leader, right? People don't know this. I'll explain it real fast. If you're a positional leader, that's level 1. That's because you are the boss, right? You have a position of authority. That is the worst place to stay. But everybody starts there, but it's the worst place to stay, right? Because there's no trust. If I just show up into an organization, they say, hey, Jason's the boss. People are like, okay, roger that. Jason's the boss. So I'm going to do what he says. But then you want to get to level 2, which is permission. And permission, the level 2 permission leadership is that you are able to build a rapport and a relationship that people don't have to follow you. They want to follow you because of that relationship that you have. The danger in that second is, in that second permission level, is because if people just stay there, at permission, then it can become a buddy buddy thing, and they're like, oh, it's just Jason. Like, I don't have to listen to what he says, because that was the thing that this guy in San Diego was talking to me about. He's like, well, how do I do that, and how do I build that relationship with them? Like, won't they just like blow me off because I'm just me? I said, no, because then you got to get to the third level, which is production. People follow you not because they have to, not because they want to, but because of what you do, because of what you do for the organization, because you have results, whatever those results are that they need to see, right? And then the fourth level is, I can't remember the P word because Maxwell likes that, but it basically is about multiplication, right? It's about you investing into other leaders, right? You developing other leaders behind you. And then the final level is pinnacle, which is where people know you and follow you because you're basically like bigger than life, right? You're like, you say Warren Buffett, everybody knows who Warren Buffett is. And you're like, oh, okay, right. That type of leader. So it's just kind of an interesting going back to the basics, if you will, of like, man, like you have to understand the people dynamics. But if you don't engage, or if you don't engage people and you don't learn those people dynamics, it's really hard. So how are you teaching that outside of like the conflict thing? Like, how are you teaching like the human people dynamics uh, to students, or your boys for that matter? I mean, just doesn't come naturally. So
Yeah. Well, I think my relationship with my boys, especially my oldest right now, has actually deepened because of conflict stuff like this. He's trying to
nice.
figure his way out into leadership, right? He's he's been a starter on the football team since his freshman year, right? And he's elevated himself just in physical play and by example on the field, um, above his class, right? There's not very many. I don't know if there was any guys in his personal class that went up to varsity as quick as he did and ascended that way. And now he's kind of run into the point where like they all have they're all varsity now, so like they've all caught up a little bit in a ways, and they've and he's been so used to that positional leadership type of style, right?
Mm,
Where
yeah.
you just got up that ladder. Um, and so when he's getting beat now by these very guys um that were below him as far as like physically, you know, physicality wise, um, like he doubts himself. Like he was kind of in that mode for a while, and we really talked about that, and of course, and I believe 100% that the video game culture has contributed to this word that flies around in the this teenage generation right now. It's called rage baiting. That wasn't a word yet
Yeah.
when I was playing video games, but it is now. And right, it's exactly what it is. They say things to get you riled up, and
Hmm.
rage bait you into just kind of losing your cool. And so that, oh man, so they would say, things like, oh man, how's it feel that, so and so got more socks than you? And of course, as a competitor, like you do feel it, but we've had this conversation so much now that my son's perspective is getting to the point where, oh, I'm feeling jealous about it, to um well, yeah, to where, well, I'm glad that my teammate has this, has, whatever, has more tackles than me. That's we're just better as a team that way. Boy, that was a lot of repeating for me.
Yeah.
And sometimes it was met with, like, frustration, but I
Hmm.
know that it's gonna break through at some point, right? Because I think in the word, like, James says, where there's jealousy, there's chaos, right?
Mm.
There's
Yeah.
nothing good is happening, and you can't have that when you're part of a team, right? And so, um, when he's trying to figure out his leadership, right? I always try to go back to, you know, the base of my belief and my faith, which is, if you want to be the greatest, you have to be a servant to all, right? And that's always my um what I tell my son is, when you're in yourself too much and you think and you want and you feel that you're entitled about something, or that you should get more reps, or that you should do this, um and that frustrates you, uh figure out a way to uplift one of your teammates. Because I think we get so wrapped up in, right, conflict. There's a lot of times I feel there may be a values conflict there, um, that that may need to get, like, you know resolved, um, or like obviously a communication issue. But I think if we can just kind of figure out some skill sets to get out of our own head and out of our own way, I think it'll help us out tremendously. And I think that's why our attitudes change so much, um, when we meet someone face to face. We cannot hide anymore behind our text message, because we got the person right in front of us, right? Um, because that's really what text messages is, right? I mean, we've sent text messages back and forth, um, to, like, honestly, it's early in the morning, and you send me that text, and I don't know. Sometimes I just like send you a thumbs up emoji, but in real life, I'm like, oh, that's an early one. But then I have to think to myself, nah, but I told Jason that, like, this is what we're gonna do, and we're gonna set it up, and I don't want to leave my friend hanging. Right? That's me getting out of my own head and putting my friend above my own needs, right? And
Yeah.
and
Sure.
and putting my character and integrity on the line, right?
Yeah.
So to speak.
Right.
And I know that sounds like really, uh, is that too dramatic? I don't think so. I think you got to be someone that a person of your word, right? And if you say you're going to do something, do it anyway, right? Do it anyways. Right? Going back to a couple podcasts before, but yeah, uh, that's usually where I kind of go to when, um, yeah, I'm feeling entitled, or I got to say something, or
Yeah.
my way's the right way. You
That's
usually
so
get
good. I mean, I was thinking about the rage baiting thing. It's like, yeah, we had that too. I mean, in sports, right? You're not immune to people talking crap. You know what I mean? I mean, yeah. And there's one thing, like I've had. There's a couple things that were I was thinking about. One is I've had people, leaders, coaches that tried to motivate me that way. Like, oh, well, so and so's doing this, so like it was going to be inspiring to me. I'm like, no, you're just pissing me off. And that is, you know what I mean? Like, and that's a negative energy where I'm like, I'm just not going to listen to you. Like, I'm going to have to tune you out because that's not helpful, where I'm at. Because I see it in sports all the time, right? And it's fun watching them because again, I like psychology and watching people. But it's amazing, right? When you're watching sports and you see a teammate, or especially if it's like an individual sport, like all of a sudden they're like, I was listening to this podcast. I don't watch tennis, but they were talking about it. Some match in the U.S. Open, that this gal got frustrated and just like hit a racket on the court and it snapped, and she was up like 5-1 or something like that and lost because she got in her head, right? Like it just like that negative energy just like flipped, and it wasn't right, and got in her head and her everything, and just it knocked her out, right? Instead of just people that can like listen to whatever's going on, right? You just let it come, and then you can just right, you can just let it go through and be like, okay, whatever. And dude, yeah, that very practical advice of like take your eyes off yourself for a second and just be like, because right, especially if you played sports, not every game you feel like you're doing 10 out of 10. I mean, there's some games you're slogging, right? It feels like you're going through the motions and you're in cement. Like what is going on, right? So I don't know. That's an interesting thought as well about like because right, it wasn't video games. It was more, but it was more real conflict, if you will, right? Like that's more real on the football field when you got somebody who's coming after you, right? And they're telling you that they're coming after you. But yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting thought. Yeah, because instead of the hiding and the ability to hide behind something, it's you have to confront it and you got to deal with it in a one-on-one manner. I'll tell you a story about. I
Well,
totally screwed up. Oh, go ahead.
like I mean, it's what happened in the very beginning when Adam and Eve when they sinned. What did they do? They hid.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
yeah.
what you know what I mean. Like there's something about like guilt and shame, and when there's conflict with others, I think sometimes we forget or we want to um push under the rug the fact that we have our internal battle as well too, right?
Yeah,
It's not just
yeah,
a
yeah, for
conflict with
sure.
another person. We have our internal battles that's going on in our mind that we also are fighting, right? So I just wanted to like throw that in, man, because it happens.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I was just gonna tell a story on myself about how I didn't handle a situation well once. So here's a
Nah,
good failure
really?
moment. So it was actually when I was youth pastor and I was in East Helena, and there was something going. I can't remember. We needed to make a change, and I'm young, right? I'm like 24, you know, and still learning about people. And there's something happened. It was one of the volunteer staff that had their daughter like helping them out and stuff. But the daughter was also in junior high, so then it caused this like, oh, I'm cooler than you thing, right? And so instead of me just like confronting it and going to mom and saying, "Hey, mom, here's what's going on. Can you help me out?" That would have been the right thing to do. Instead, I addressed it in front of the whole group, like, well, some people, are doing this and being a chicken, right? And you can imagine, like, you're just laughing. You can imagine how that went, right? Not good because,
Sure.
yeah, the blowback and all the other things that happened. And so it's just part of that. Sometimes you just got to grow a set and you just got to go have the hard conversation, right? You just have to go, and the difficult conversation needs to be had, especially if you have that, right? If you genuinely care about people, if you genuinely care and love people, then it's your responsibility as a leader to have those hard conversations, right? It's your responsibility to confront things head on. And it doesn't mean, like I was saying with my friend in San Diego, it's not like you're an asshole, right? There's one way to deal with it. The other is to be passive, which is how I dealt with it, in that situation. But the correct way, and it's not rocket science. Like you read, Matthew when Jesus is talking about like here's how you handle something. Like what do you do? Well, it's one on one. You just go confront, and it says in scripture, you go confront your brother. Like, hey man, this is going on. You can't have this happening, right? And if he hears you, great. And if he doesn't hear you, what do you do? Right? Grab somebody else. Then it's two people. Like, hey, this is going on. We're noticing it. Just want you to know, like, this can't happen anymore. And then, right, then step three is obviously like, it gets pretty harsh, And so it's kind of funny because when like I modeled when I fire people, I modeled that 4 strike basically after that. It's like strike 0 is just quick conversation. Strike 1 is like, hey man, a more serious conversation. Strike 2, you're bringing somebody else. Strike 3, sorry man, this isn't going to work out. Like this is the standard. You're not living up. You're not meeting the standard or the expectations. And whether it's defiance or you're just not good, whatever. Anyway, just kind of interesting. And it's amazing how many people don't do that. Like they just tolerate stuff because they're scared of the conflict.
Yeah.
So
A whole like, holding accountability, uh,
yeah.
right? Like, I mean, and honestly too, if you think about it, right? You had the 4 strike rule, right? At what point, for ourselves do we go, I'm not really I'm not really doing this person any favors by keeping them around and keeping them all it almost like, uh, you know, like letting them wither on the vine and like die
Mm,
slowly kind of deal. You know what I mean? Do you, like when I think of things out that way, it helps me, right? I'm taking my eyes off myself and I'm going, wow, I'm not helping this guy. How can I help this guy? Because it doesn't look like it's gonna happen here. You know what I mean? And I think, I don't know, I'm sure you've probably had to let go of someone, but when you let go of them, hey, where are some places that I can help you out with? Or, um, or giving them some sort of a game plan moving on. Um, yeah. And I think the key, right, when we are, you know, breaking some news to someone that can be a little difficult, right? I'm a big fan of like Tim Elmore's quote where he said that uh good relationships, when you have to bring up conflict to someone, they're able to bear the bear the weight of truth, right? But I think it's somewhere along the lines that's like uh relationships create a bridge where it can bear the weight of truth, right? And that
mm,
means
that's good.
when you have to drop some hard stuff on someone, um there's, even though maybe it's not a good fit in a company or the friendship's over, uh, there's still, it's still civil. Like we can still do this in a civil manner and not, right? And the whole forest doesn't have to burn,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
We can go
Yeah.
our own ways and keep it respectful. I think that was it, right? Like I think I remember a quote now. But I think it was, Jesse Jackson where he was talking about, you don't whether you like me or whether you don't like me, it doesn't matter, but it would be beneficial if we respect each other, right?
Yeah.
I think just
That is
having
good.
that common respect, it would be really, which is actually the kind of a segue into what I'm currently doing right now, which is creating my own curriculum right now for, uh
Yeah. Let's
yeah,
go.
bro. Yeah, man.
Dude, that's
My
awesome.
first lesson in the books, and the first lesson is about respect.
Right
Um,
on.
yeah,
That's so
dude.
exciting, buddy.
Yeah, I
Nice work.
um, but anyways, I think that, it conflict when conflicts arise, I think the the a good result coming from that, whatever it is leaving where both parties feel respected and heard, and they can move on civilly.
Yeah. 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 That's interesting. It's kind of like if I think of, I don't know why it popped in my brain, but I think that's probably one of the, love him or hate him, Donald Trump is a master negotiator, you
He
know,
is.
and he can bully his way and he can do stuff, but it's funny because you see all the stuff that he posts online even, but then when people meet him in person, they're just like, unless they're probably directly debating him on a stage, right? But they genuinely are like, "Oh, he's a really nice guy." Like anybody that I know personally that has met Donald Trump, and they for sure, I know a few of them that for sure would never have voted for him, but they're like, "He's a really cool guy." Like he's just really you get to know him and you're like, "Oh, he's obviously worked on people skills and he's okay with conflict, right? You're okay with just like having the hard conversation. So it's like, okay, where's, the all the way down here with the kid that doesn't know how to like look somebody in the eye and have a conversation, all the way to that where it's like, you just bashing heads together to get what you want out of it. Um, yeah, and I think like leaning into that, right? Like leaning into the like not running from, because it's real. Dude, I love what you just said about respect. I was thinking about it was a contract breach problem that we were working on, and both parties, when both parties showed up, they basically were like, "Yep, contract is in breach. Let's figure it out." You know what I mean? And it's not that big of a deal. Like it really isn't. Like I tell people all the time, like contracts are to keep honest people honest. That's it. Like
That's
contracts
right.
are really for people to say, "Hey, this is what we agreed on," so that when we forget 5 years from now, we can go back and be like, "Oh, here's what we agreed on." Right?
Right.
If somebody's going to try to screw you, it doesn't matter if you have a contract or not. They're going to try to screw you, and so you better have a contract, right? So that it holds up in court and everything else. Versus this, it's, a, it's an annoying situation that with a client, and they're just going through it, man. I mean, they're just in the middle of this like lot of litigation and all this stuff, and there is no respect from the other party. And so they're just like doing all this stuff. And that I don't think that party's going to win. I think they've lost their cool and I think they're going to lose pretty bad. But all to say, it's just like, man, like keep the respect thing, you know, if
Yeah.
nothing else, because that gives you that reputation moving forward, right? Like you're saying, like letting people go. I've let lots of people go. It's never fun. It's the worst part of the job. But when you do that, there's a lot of people that you still have that relationship and that rapport with, meaning that they respected the way that I handled it. They respected me as a person, and so I can help them move forward in a different way, and vice versa. If I've let somebody go, and uh, I had nothing against them as a person, right? It wasn't a character thing. They just weren't good at the job. Dude, that is so easy for me. So if somebody's just like, "Hey, you're right," they own it. And they're like, "Yeah, I'm not good at this." It's like, great. Let me help you find something that you are good at.
Yes.
And even just going out and like, let me help you find a job because I've got lots of contacts. I know what you're good at now. Like you've worked for me. Let me help you find something. And right and it seems like an unusual thing, but if you have that at the forefront, again, like that's why I started with like, you've got to have trust and you have to have a high regard for people, because if you don't have that, then, okay, work on that first. That would be your first step. If you do have that, then you have to be okay with hard conversations and you have to embrace them because it's about getting better and doing better. Have you ever
Yeah.
read,
That's well put, man.
yeah, maybe we've talked about this before. Have you ever read Patrick Lencioni's Five Dysfunctions of a Team?
I have not read it, but
Okay.
it's in the queue.
Nice. It's in the queue. Yeah. It's a good book. And it's a parable story. It's actually modeled when I wrote my book. I was like, I like just that style. So I kind of wrote after that. But um, the idea being that if you want, everybody wants results, right? That's the top of the pyramid, right? Everybody wants the results. In order to have the results, though, you have to have accountability, right? You have to say, like, yeah, I'm going to show up and I'm going to do this thing. Okay. In order to get uh, accountability, right, there has to be commitment, right? You've got to commit to it. And the only way you get commitment, and it seems counterintuitive, is you have to have conflict. So that's one of the base layers. And it's not like the yelling stuff and throwing stuff, but if we don't debate ideas, then the best idea isn't going to come out. Or even worse, what I see happen in companies is that you've got a board meeting, people are disagreeing, it gets heated, whatever. And instead of disagreeing and committing, right? That's the phrase, disagree and commit. If instead of disagreeing and committing, they're disagreeing and then they're backbiting, and you start to see these factions in the company where we're on a team for that matter. Like, well, coach said we should do this, but I think he's stupid, so we're going to do it this way. You know what I mean? Like that just destroys cultures and companies, right? You have to have conflict. In order to have healthy conflict, the base layer, no surprise, is trust. Like you have to have trust. If you don't have trust in an organization, right? People don't know that you genuinely care about them. There's no trust that you can voice your opinion, because I see that happen a lot in companies where somebody's like, okay, well, this last company I worked for, the boss just like ate everybody for lunch, and so I'm not going to stick my head up, versus like, no, we encourage conflict, like come with ideas and let's debate them. And I joke with people like, if people saw my cousin Joseph and Kevin and I, in conversations sometimes, they think we hated each other because it can get heated, right? We're debating because we're not angry at each other, right? It's not even it's like we're debating the issue, right? And so we have conflict because we're all bullheaded and we have ideas of ways that we think we should do something. But then once we have decided on something, we disagree, conflict, and then we commit, right? And then we say, hey, we're going to get behind this idea so that when we leave that room, we're a united front. This is what we're going to do. And because we've committed to it, I've committed to it, I'm accountable to the result, right? And then you actually do get results. Got lots of stories on how I've been wrong because I thought my idea was best, but then I let it go. And then, conflict, I'm like, disagree and commit. And then, go back later. I'm like, Kevin, you were 100% right. And I was 100% wrong on that specific issue. And sometimes it's the other way around where he's like, I didn't handle that well. We should have gone with your plan. But whatever. Right. So it's interesting because as I think about conflict, there's that healthy side of it that, man, it's a skill set that I think people don't know how to do it. I don't know how to have healthy conflict. So hopefully that rant might have been helpful to somebody.
No, yeah, I mean, you're right on, man. That's, as iron sharpens iron, right? Like,
Hmm.
there's friction when that happens, right? There's
Yeah.
clanging and, the sound maybe doesn't sound really good when you hear that happening, but that's when people have, that edge to them, and companies have that edge to them when, they are in a healthy conflict with each other, and it's all out in the open
Hmm.
where you know what I mean, like, we're not hiding anything here. What we're doing is we want things to be more efficient, or um we want to make sure that we are, uh, there's there's a bunch of wise counselors in the room to where
Yeah.
we can make a good decision moving forward. And sometimes, right, it looks like, people are biting their heads off, but at the end of the day, hey, let's go get some coffee, or hey, let's go to the gym and work out, or whatever it is that people do. As long as it can maintain that, I keep going back to that civil manner between people. I think you got a really healthy organization, a healthy relationship, right? I mean, I think about, my relationship with my wife, right? Boy, I like I said, I married up for sure, man, and um, but we still have our conflicts, but
Sure. Yeah.
just because we have conflict, doesn't mean, uh, honestly, it actually helps our marriage, get better, because every time we get through a disagreement or a conflict, or our perspectives are different on something, and we figure it out in a civil manner, or in a marriage in a loving manner,
Yeah.
we level up, man. We level up
Yeah.
in our marriage, right? So,
For sure.
and I think you can take that same, perspective, into different avenues, right? Whether it's like, I'm thinking of when I was playing ball, and my first season I got there, we went 0-11.
Oof. That's
We
rough.
we 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 were, we were a Division 1 school, and we lost against a Division 2 school, right? That's how kind of dysfunctional we were, in a sense. And thinking back, we had a lot of transitions from, like, one regime of coaching to another, so there was a lot of that.
Uh,
There's a lot of,
yeah.
"This is the way we used to do things, but no, but here comes the new regime. This is how we're gonna do things now." And just, like, a lot of people were not bought in, right? And so there was a lot of that, right? When you're, like I bring back to James, where, uh when there's disunity, right? Like selfishness, selfish ambition, you're gonna find that when you see those 2 things, right? Jealousy, "Oh, he's not getting more playing time," which made our locker room, uh, certainly not unified, and the result was that, right? It was an embarrassing 0-11. Um, my playing time, that was a black eye and probably in MSU history. Uh, but also at the same time, in that same span, where the next year, well, I'm not seeing some of the teammates that I had last year, and we started getting yeah right. We started finding people that are going to be bought into this new culture that my head coach was trying to put forth, and we slowly improved to where by the end of it, we changed MSU culture. I believe that wholeheartedly because we were a program in kind of in like the lower levels to where we changed the culture to where now, right? Um, what people see is a program that's gone to the national championship, a few times, but you like you don't hopefully people don't forget we started off 0-11
Yeah.
and then 5 and what is it 5-7, I can't remember the stuff, but and then we went back to back Big Sky championships, right? Like and then like the culture flipped. Why? Because people started seeing that we've laid down a foundation of excellence, right? Our coach, our defensive coordinator at the time, uh, he his we called it the P3, right? Pride, poise, and performance. And it took us a couple years to really not only have those thoughts in our head, but also to live it out on the field and to play like it on the field. So, um, so yeah, and so that's kind of I think what a lot of people seeing now, that foundation of pride, that foundation of poise and performance on the field. And now, right, like my defensive coordinator back in my school, he's a defensive coordinator for Texas right now. One of the premier programs. The dude was amazing, right? Uh, because he held such a high standard for um his the program. And football is a little more cutthroat. We're hey, you're just not a fit for this team, so we're going to take your scholarship away um or if if your grades tank like mine, but my redshirt freshman year, um but uh I do know this, that I remember we have a coaching staff that was very civil about it. And one of the things they would say is like, you know let us know what we can do if this is truly what you want to do. Unfortunately, it's not going to be on this team, but if you want to push forward, I mean, let us know how we can help you, right? We've got some contacts out there. We can make a phone call here and there, right? That's how you remain civil about things, right? So, anyways, just wanted to share the story of, when conflict starts off bad, because of disunity, jealousy, selfish ambition, to um to where everybody's winning because we're doing things um at a excellent standard, right?
Yeah. That's huge. And there's probably a lot of conflict in that, right? It didn't like you're saying, it didn't happen overnight. It's not like,
Yeah.
you know. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I mean, of course, we had star players. We had players that got drafted, um, and uh, but the culture became so ingrained that even the like some of our star players understood the mission and put the mission forward, right? The like and you'll see that with a lot of good teams. They have standards where they're held accountable, right? I think the Patriot way is, I mean, it's something that I also try to push towards the kids is, right, do your job, um focus, right, stay locked in, and put the team ahead, put the team first, right? So I mean, if we could do that as a football team and make it easy like that, I think it would be good. Ours is uh, our head football coach. His three things are do right, be first class, and an attitude of gratitude. Right? It's all It's all same same principles, but it's a different method of doing
Yeah.
things. Right? So
Yeah. And it's uniquely yours, right? I mean, that's the core value of the team. And the more that people can like grab that, exemplify it, root it into themselves, into their teammates, like, dude, yeah, sky's the limit.
right,
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah. Cause that's, yeah, essentially the same stuff that we do in business, right? Here's the core values. Here's what we're about. If you don't jive with this, like if this doesn't fit you, sorry, we're gonna have to find a different fit for you. It's not gonna be here.